pages 2 and 3, the story of creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was barren, with no form of life. It was under a roaring ocean covered with darkness. But the Spirit of God was moving over the water. The first day, God said, "I command light to shine," and light started shining. God looked at the light and saw that it was good. He separated light from darkness and named the light day and the darkness night. Evening came and then morning. That was the first day. The second day, God said, "I command a dome to separate the water above it and the water below it." And that's what happened. God made the dome and named it the sky. Evening came and then morning. That was the second day. The third day, God said, "I command the water under the sky to come together in one place, so there will be dry ground." And that's what happened. God named the dry ground land. And he named the water ocean. God looked at what he had done and saw that it was good. God said, "I command the earth to produce all kinds of plants, including fruit, trees, and grain." And that's what happened. The earth produced all kinds of vegetation. God looked at what he had done, and it was good. Evening came and then morning. That was the third day. The fourth day. God said, "I command lights to appear in the sky and to separate day from night and to show the time for seasons, special days and years. I command them to shine on the earth." And that's what happened. God made two powerful lights, the brighter one to rule the day and the other to rule the night. He also made the stars. Then God put these lights in the sky to shine on the earth, to rule day and night, to separate light from darkness. God looked at what he had done, and it was good. Everything came and then morning. Evening came and then morning. That was the fourth day. The fifth day, God said, "I command the ocean to be full of living creatures, and I command birds to fly above the earth." So God made giant sea monsters and all the living creatures that swim in the ocean. He also made every kind of bird. God looked at what he had done, and it was good. Then he gave the living creatures his blessings. He told the ocean creatures to live everywhere in the ocean, and the birds to fly everywhere on earth. Evening came, then morning. This was the fifth day. The sixth day, God said, "I command the earth to give life to all kinds of tame animals, wild animals, and reptiles." And that's what happened. God made every one of them. Then he looked at what he had done, and it was good. God said, "Now we will make humans, and they will be like us. We will let them rule the fish, the birds, and all other living creatures." So God created humans to be like himself. He made men and women. God gave them his blessing and said, "Have a lot of children, fill the earth with people, and bring it under your control. Rule over the fish in the ocean, the birds in the sky, and every animal on the earth."
In our adult Bible study class, we are starting back at the beginning, Genesis, the creation. And a lot of people think, why do you want to start all the way back there? But if you know anything about Genesis, it's really the foundation of our faith. All those first families. And what I always find so wonderful about those first families, they were more dysfunctional than anyone you can even imagine. When people come up to me and say, "Well, you know, I have these problems. My family really, we didn't get along with each other. I haven't spoken to my sister in 20 years. You see nothing. The things that went on in some of those first families, oh my gosh, these people. How many of you know that Abraham pawned off his wife to the Pharaoh, to the king of Egypt, as his sister says, you can have her. Huh? A lot of you know that? Yeah, not very nice. Boy, Stella wouldn't let you get away with that. Oh, no. Yeah. He wouldn't dare. But this is the kind of thing that happened. And what about the favorites? Mommy's little darling, Rebecca's little darling was Jacob. And Daddy's son was Esau. So we had family favorites, we had squabbles, we had brothers wanting to kill each other. We have Cain and Abel, that actually the brother did kill a brother. So we have all these first families. And we're told that God blessed these people and that they were the ones that were a beacon of light to the world. And you're thinking, how could they be a beacon of light? You know, what's going on here? But it always gives me hope. When I think of God blessing these families, what does it say for the rest of us? God can work through all of us, no matter who we are, what we've done in the past, what we're really doing right now, because God made us in God's likeness and said, good, not bad, you're all right. So if you make a mistake, do not exactly what you're supposed to be doing, just pick yourself back up and try again, and again, and again, and again. There is a fellow that works with me who is not a believer, or he wasn't a believer until last week. And that's why I want to share something very special with you. And I understand that. He came from a very rigid family, and they told him that he had to read the Bible literally. So if it said God created the fish and things like that on a particular day, it had to be within 24 hours. And that everything had to be done in 7 days. In other words, 24 hours times 7 days. And you can't read it any other way. No, I'm not saying that God couldn't do that, because with God everything is possible. But, you know, he was a student who took science classes and studied dinosaurs and some of these other dead animals that have, are now extinct. And he just couldn't handle the 6 days making all of the animals and the seas and everything else. And so rather than looking into it and saying, well, maybe there's more than one interpretation, he said, bunch of nonsense. Well, last week we were studying salmon. How many of you know the story of the salmon, about the way they're born, the little eggs that they grow, and they have to kind of hide out because big fish will want to get them, and how they go from a fresh water to a salt water and stay there for a number of years, sometimes swimming 1,000 miles and making it back, if they're lucky, to the same place where they were born. Isn't that amazing when you think about it? Well, anyway, what happened? Every day last week, I was showing a video on YouTube. They're wonderful kid videos about salmon. And this was the grand finale. It's a little over 3 minutes, and I want to share it with you and how my friend became a believer. So, Julio, you have it ready?
Yeah.
Okay. We can all enjoy it together.
It's fall in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and the rivers are choked with salmon. Thousands of these fish are returning to lay eggs in the place they were born. Salmon get their start in these rivers. The cold, clean and well-oxygenated water is vital to their initial survival. But soon after they're born, they leave this fresh water for a life in the sea. Unlike most freshwater fish, salmon move freely between the two environments. A salmon's brain sends hormones to its body so it can adjust to changes in salt content. The fish spend as many as 8 years swimming in the sea, then head back to fresh water to lay their eggs. Most return to the exact stream where they were born. Scientists think they rely on the Earth's magnetic field to guide them in the ocean. Then their sharp sense of smell directs them to the right stream. It's a treacherous, often uphill journey, but these salmon are built to take it. They navigate around tricky obstacles, jump through waterfalls, and log hundreds of miles on their way. If that weren't enough, they also have to dodge dozens of predators in search of a good meal. Traveling against the river's current can be exhausting, but a calm pool behind the rocks provides a good place to rest. Near the end of the trip, salmon stop eating and their skin turns red. The pigment that colors their flesh moves into their skin as they use up stored fat. Finally, they reach a shallow location ideal for laying eggs. The females dig a nest in the gravel, while the males guard against predators. A female salmon can lay more than 3,000 eggs at a time. The males protect the eggs until the females die. This journey marks the end of a salmon's life. Worn out and starving, both males and females die soon after spawning. As their bodies decompose, they provide nutrients for the next generation. After about 4 months, the salmon eggs hatch. The young fish spend several months in the river before heading to the sea. This amazing cycle begins all over again.
Fascinating, isn't it? What?
When we were in Idaho, we were in a lake, and we saw salmon, and they were all over the place. They were hitting my feet and everything.
And this is it. The
But
salmon egg.
if you took one,
With
picked
the
it
seed.
up,
Whoa!
what did you
I
say?
did not, but I just got them sitting in these cheesecloth bags.
All right. Well, my friend who works with me said that he was taught in his biology class when he was a freshman at Cal State LA that life is a combination of carbon chains, which it is. You can prove that. And that certain carbon chains, carbon molecules band together, and so you have different kinds of animals. It can be one cell or just a few or billions. And he said, okay, all right, you've converted me. I said, I was not here to convert anybody. I just wanted to have the kids learn about salmon. He goes, mathematically, what would the probability be of having it all come together in this animal, the salmon, and that they're all so programmed that they all seem to know where to go, how to change their body from a freshwater living creature to a saltwater, and to be able to navigate back to where they came from. He said, mathematically, I think that's impossible. It couldn't be done. There has to be some creative force that programmed them to be able to do this. I said, oh, really? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, that's great. Now we're all convinced. But that's not the point of what I am trying to say today. I am not preaching to the choir. The people who are here today some creation, that there's some force, some God that created everything and said, it's good. But what I want to share with you today, especially those of us who live in urban, suburban areas where we're kind of crowded with buildings and cement and asphalt, sometimes we forget the creation that was given to all of us. And I want to really invite you to get up early in the morning and see that sun rising and to look at the trees and say, wow, God is really good. And to really listen to the birds as they sing. And here in Arcadia, we have lots of squirrels. And I really enjoy it in the morning. I see the little squirrels scampering around and some of the other little critters. And see all of nature. And look to the hills, which we have here. Go, wow, isn't this awesome? And truly appreciate that which has been given us. It's not a case of convincing anyone that there's a God, but appreciating that which we can enjoy with each other. Amen. This is the first Sunday of the month, and this is the time when we share communion with each other. So I invite you right now to take out your inserts to your bulletins, and we will share our communion together. And it's bold print, that means you read it, all right? The presence of the Spirit comes to us with unexpected brightness, often answering unspoken prayers. Any light, a winter window, an open door, a table candle, or an evening star can be a sign of God's presence, calming our fears, strengthening our resolve, and protecting us from despair.
We seek an everlasting light in our inward weakness. We long to know the shining of the risen one among us and with us.
Gathered here, we risk the hope that people with God's light in them can remake their lives with a bit of bread and a shared cup, that nothing is lost forever, and that nothing is impossible with God. We seek a connection beyond understanding, a gleam of holiness in the bread of the promise and the cup of joy. Amen. And we join together in our prayer for communion. O God, who welcome us to this table, people throughout our realm who celebrate their feasts in different languages, styles of worship, intensity of faith, and those who are finding meaningful faith for the first time. Bless us, bless the union. May it start yet another conversation in our hearts as you become more and more real for us. Amen. So when we read stories about Jesus, he seems to be spending a lot of time eating and drinking with his friends. For most of his life, he chose feasting over fasting as a way of giving thanks to God. No less a feast was the meal he shared with his disciples on the last living night on earth. Jesus took a loaf at this Passover meal. He blessed it and he broke it and shared it with them, saying, "Take, eat. This is my body, which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And likewise, after supper, he took a cup. And when he had given thanks to God for it, he shared it with his disciples, saying, "This is the cup of the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. Do this as often as you drink to remember me." And so, the table is ready. And everyone who chooses is welcome to come up here and share the bread and the fruit of the